Good morning and welcome to our webinar on IPM performance for the month of June. And thank you for joining us on this weekend. So what we will be covering today is more specifically, we will be covering more on how the IPM has performed and what are the different players which have contributed to this type of growth. So we will be looking at the IPM therapy performance, the growth drivers. We have done a little detailed analysis on the growth dynamics for the key therapies and the corporates which have contributed to this type of growth. We will be looking at the top 40 corporates, the top 40 brands, and the summary of the entire presentation. So looking at the IPM therapy performance, for the month of June, the IPM has shown a robust growth of close to 8.8%. Even the unit growth, though it may be on a lower side, the unit growth is also positive, around 2.5% growth. The therapies which have really contributed in a very robust way to this growth are the anti-diabetes therapy, the gastro therapy, and the respiratory therapy, where the growth has been double digit in terms of value. At the same time, it also needs to be noted that these therapies have shown an equally robust growth in terms of units, wherein for anti-infectives, the value growth is 17, unit is 6.2. Gastro, it is close to 11 and 8%, and respiratory, the value growth is 19%, and the unit growth is a double-digit 10%. Majority of the therapies have shown a positive streak, but these are the three therapies which have really shown a robust growth. Now, if you were to look at the seasonal patterns as well, the second half, where the monsoon starts, these are the typical therapies where the second half of the year, which is June to December, are the seasons where these therapies pick up, and this type of growth seems to be happening from this month onwards. Looking at the growth drivers, as compared to the growth driver for the June of 2023, this month, we have shown positive growth drivers across all the three key levers: the new introductions, the price-driven growth, volume growth may be on a very slightly lower side, or it's as good as negligible, but it is not negative. As compared to the same time last year for the month of June 23, while new introductions and price had driven the growth of the market, the volumes were negative. We try to look at which are the therapies where this new introduction driven growth was on a slightly higher side. So for the month of June, what we have observed is the blood-related therapy, which falls among the key therapies because hematinics comes in that set. Because of a lot of new introductions happening in the FCM segment, this therapy has shown a relatively robust new introduction growth. Similarly, anti-diabetes, where a lot of branded generics still continue entering the market and also doing well, getting picked up well. This therapy has shown a lot of new introduction activity. Some other therapies where new introduction activities would be slightly on a higher side would be the neuro segment, the derma segment to some extent. But net, if I were to look at the volume growth, most of the top therapies have shown a positive volume growth. Exceptions would be the diabetes therapy, obviously because new introductions are driving the growth, whereas the current or the existing brands which were more on the innovative molecule sites, they may have shown a little downside. Then, since we have talked about the growth of the market being 8.8% and certain therapy areas driving the growth of the market, we try to look at, is it that all the players in the market have shown this, all the players or all the corporates in the market have shown this type of growth, or are there a few players which have driven the growth of this market? For which we did two types of analysis. One is we looked at the long-term trend of the Indian pharma market. So, typically, the Indian pharma market also follows a seasonal pattern where second half of the year actually picks up very well because it's the monsoon season for the entire country. And the top therapies or top 10 therapies which contribute to almost 90% of the IPM, majority of them have a acute therapy pattern wherein, the monsoon season, it's actually depending upon the monsoon season pickup where these therapies pick up in the second half. So if I were to look at the long-term trend of the Indian pharma market, usually the season starts picking up from the month of June. If you see, It has actually picked up from the month of June. It is above the linear trend line, and we are seeing the same pattern against the month of June again, against the linear trend line even this month. Then we also looked at two more angles. We looked at the growth angle and the incremental sale angle. So this is the incremental of June 23 over June 22. And this is the incremental of June 24 over June 23 and the growth. So same time last year also the market had grown by around 6% over same period last year. This time the growth may be on a relatively higher side, but looking at the size of the market, it's almost 2,000 crore plus market, 20,000 crore plus market. Looking at the size of the market, this incremental value seems to be more in line. We did a little more detailed analysis at the therapy level, wherein we try to look at, is this scenario true across all the therapies? And within the therapies, we try to analyze the companies or the corporates which contribute to 80% of the value to that therapy. And are there some specific companies which have driven the growth of the market for this month? So we have done this analysis only for the top 10 therapies. So looking at the cardiac therapy, if I were to look at the long-term trend of the cardiac therapy really doesn't have a seasonal pattern. So it's a steady growth that the market usually shows. And if I were to look at the performance of the cardiac therapy over the last 12 months, the entire sales trend is more or less in sync with the long-term trend line of this therapy. Also, if I were to look at the growth, how the growth of this market has been over same period last year in terms of incremental as well as value growth, to a great extent, we have seen similar type of growth this year as well as last year. However, there are certain companies among the top 80% value contributing corporates where the growth has been significant, and these corporates have to a good extent driven the growth of the market. So Sun, Torrent, Lupin, Mankind, Cipla, Abbott, Intas, Micro, Aristo, and JB Chemicals, if you look at their growth, the growth has been significant. Now, these are not the 80% value contributing companies, but these are among the companies which contribute to 80% of the value of this market. And what we also see is these companies have, to a great extent, shown good growth for the market, for themselves in this therapy. Coming to the anti-infectives therapy, we are seeing in anti-infectives, we do see a significant contribution coming from companies like Aristo, Alchem, Macleod, Cipla, Sun, Mankind, GSK, Emcure, Abbott, Lupin, and Glenmark. Anti-infectives therapy typically starts picking up from the second half of the year. And this is exactly the trend that we are seeing for this therapy. Then coming to the gastro therapy usually, again, if you see, it starts showing an uptick from May, June onwards. This season or this month, the uptick has been on a slightly higher side as compared to the other therapies, as compared to the other months. Abbott, Sun, Alchem, Torrent, Aristo, Mankind, Himalaya, Lupin, Cipla, FDC, Intas, Wallace, Force, and Laranon. These are the companies which have contributed significantly to the growth of the gastro, and these are the companies which are among the top 80% value contributing companies. Coming to the anti-diabetes therapies, again, anti-diabetes, similar to cardiac, it is more or less in line with the long-term trend. And Abbott, Sun, Mankind, Intas, Torrent, and Alchem, these are the companies which have shown a significant and robust growth that has driven the growth of the market. While the market has grown or the therapy has grown just by 6%, but then there are certain players which have shown a growth which is almost double or more than double the growth of that particular therapy. Coming to the nutritional segment, again, nutritionals, if you see the typical seasonal trend pattern is the therapy really picks up in the second half of the year. And this pickup probably as compared to last year, a slightly delayed pickup, but definitely the therapy has picked up. Abbott, Mankind, Alchem, Apex, Eris, DRL, Intas, Corona, Lupin, USP, Fresenius, Force, Universal NutriScience, and Micro. These are the companies among the top 80% companies which have shown a significant growth. as compared to the other players. Now here, though I may see many number of players, but they are among the 80% value contributing. Actually, as far as the nutritionals market is concerned, the number of players which fall in the top 80% are relatively on a higher side. So we see a lot of clutter. And many of the players may not be a part of this list that we are showing. Coming to the respiratory therapy, again, a seasonal pattern that the therapy shows. And the pickup would now start from the month of June onwards, which has been seen. Last year, same time last year, the season had picked up from the month of July onwards. But this year, we are seeing the pickup happening from the month of June. And this respiratory therapy performance, a good performance has been seen across both. It is seen for the COPD segment as well as for the respiratory segment. A good number of companies have contributed to a significant double-digit growth for the respiratory therapy. So if you see, there are certain companies like Centaur, Franco, which in terms of absolute value may be much smaller to Cipla, but they fall in the top 80% value contributing companies for this therapy, and they have shown close to 63, 54% growth. Even Pfizer in that limited section has shown a 54% growth. Coming to the pain and analgesics therapy, again, a seasonal pattern shown. The therapy starts picking up from the month of June, and the same uptick is being seen even for this month. As far as the growth is concerned, a growth has slightly slowed down. But though the growth for the overall therapy has slowed down, GSK, Torrent, Alkem, Micro, Troika, Mankind, Cipla, Intas, Blue Cross, Apex, Aristo, Aurobindo, and Ajanta, these are the players among the top 80% which have managed to show a good growth. Coming to the Derma Therapy, again, a seasonal trend, and a good number of players among the top 80% have shown a significant growth. The ones which have the growth is on a relatively much more higher side would be companies like Torrent, Intas, USV, Micro, where the growth is much more robust as compared to the overall therapy growth. The neurosciences therapy, again, a therapy where it really doesn't matter or it doesn't have a seasonal component, but then the therapy has been quite steady and more or less in line with the long-term trend line. A relatively better uptick seen from May to June in this year. Also, as far as the growth is concerned, the growth has remained steady last year versus this year. But then if I look at certain companies where the growth is almost double or more, so Intas, Mankind, Micro, the growth is almost double than what the therapy growth has been seen. Last but not the least, we have Gyne among the top therapies, 10 therapies that we'll be evaluating. So though the overall Gyne therapy has stagnated and has shown a 0% growth, there are certain players like Sun, Torrent, Corona, Aristo, Lupin, and Acumentis who, despite the overall Gyne therapy having stagnated, these companies have managed to show a good growth. So this was about the top therapies and certain players in the top therapies which have managed to show a good growth. Coming to the top 40 corporates, if I were to look at certain corporates where the performance has been very, very impressive, among the top 20, we have Cipla and Alkem, where the value as well as the unit growth has been double digit. Of course, there are other players also like Aristo, GSK, USV, Glenmark, where the value growth has been double digit. Even Micro, the value growth for the month has been double digit. Sun, the growth has been double digit. Mankind, the growth has been double digit. Torrent, the growth has been double digit in terms of value. But where Cipla and Alkem stand out is their unit growth also has been double digit. Among the next set of players number 21 to 40, we see FDC, Blue Cross, Fords. These are the companies where the value growth is double digit and the unit growth is also impressive double digit. Coming to the top 40 brands, as GSK and USV, they have their flagship brands, Augmentin and Glycomed GP, which continue to maintain the rank 1 and rank 2 position respectively. Good part is, if I look at Leo 52, this brand from Himalaya stays at the number 3 position for the MAT level as well as for the month. What is interesting is players like or brands like Leo 52, Rosuas, Monosef, Pan, Thyronorm, Videcar, Deolin, Ecosprin, AV, all of these brands have shown a very impressive value as well as unit double-digit growth for the month of June. Similarly, if I were to look at some more brands from the rank 21 to 40, what we see is Pandi, Pantop, Ribelsis, Electral, Micacin, Brilinta, Moxicine CV, and Dexolac. These brands have also shown a very impressive double-digit growth in terms of value as well as units for the month of June. So this was more or less about a crisp analysis of how the market has performed and how the core companies have performed in this market. And we try to do a little deeper analysis at the therapy level as well. So if I were to summarize the performance of the Indian pharma market, the IPM has shown a robust value growth of close to 8.8%, with majority of the therapies being on a positive side. However, a few therapies like anti-infectives, gastro, and respiratory, they have shown a double-digit growth in terms of value as well as units. New introductions and price have driven the growth for majority of the therapies, whereas volume growth, though it is not negative, it is negligible for the month of June. Of course, there are certain therapies where the volume growth has been also quite positive, like anti-infectives. But also, if I were to look at some therapies like anti-diabetes or blood-related, the new introductions contribution for the growth is on a relatively higher side. Majority of the therapy value trend is in sync with the long-term trend line for the therapy. However, each therapy has a few companies that have substantially driven the growth for the company as well as for the therapy. For the month of June 24, majority of the top players have shown an encouraging value growth. And as far as the brand position is concerned, Augmentin and Glycomed GP continue to retain their leadership position for the MAT June period as well as month June period. That's all from our side. And thank you for joining us on a holiday, on a weekend. And have a very nice weekend. Thanks again. Thank you so much.